I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of our shooting show. We want to welcome you to today's program. We're certainly very, very pleased to be here. Heck, we're glad to be on the air. And we're glad that you can join us because you know what our program is about. Those of you who have been watching this program for a long time know that what we're about is demonstrating the safe and responsible use of firearms. That's what our program is about. Our program is to educate more Americans on just what private ownership of guns is about. And you know, right now, as we keep saying, we're losing our battle to keep our guns, whether it's this shotgun or the semi-automatic pistol, whatever you want to talk about. We're losing that fight right now. There are a lot of reasons for that. One of the main reasons is that the people at the higher echelons in government are not comfortable with us as citizens owning guns, because a lot of things now are happening to our general population. The government is putting more and more pressure. People are feeling more and more pressured by jobs, or lack of jobs in some areas, by things like illegal immigration, like overtaxation, so many things that people are upset about. And the government figures, now we're not talking about our Constitution, we're talking about the people that are running so much of our government in Washington. They're uncomfortable with the fact that we as citizens can prevent a police state as long as we're armed, as long as there are guns in the general population. This is what our founding fathers had in mind when they put in the Second Amendment to the Constitution. And if you would, please tell me what part of shall not be infringed, that part of the Second Amendment, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. What part of that is not clear? I find it interesting that groups like the American Civil Liberties Union and some of the other groups that are so rabid about defending the First Amendment, freedom of speech, but what happens when we get down to the Second Amendment, the very safeguard, the very insurance policy that will contribute toward keeping their free speech in place? Yet where are these people? See, they're not there because a lot of these groups have socialist leanings in their founding policy, and they're also uncomfortable because they know that the American public, the basic American citizen, is not a socialist and does not want socialism. And the only way, to quote that sticker we've seen from Sarah Brady there, the only way the socialists can achieve their dream of socialist America is for us as citizens to be disarmed. You know, we've had a lot of experience in this program. This is our 7th year on the air, and I tell you what, friends, it has been a roller coaster ride. Trust me on this one. And so many people in our own gun industry, and I say our own because it's yours and mine. Heck, it's us that buy these things. You know, so many people, so many of the companies are afraid to take a stand and just simply stand up for the truth because they're afraid, well, maybe they'll lose a government contract, or maybe the media will come after them like the media did with Winchester on the Black Talon bullet, which is absolutely ludicrous. It was people who didn't know anything about ammunition that jumped on Winchester, that was using it as an advertising campaign about an effective bullet. But see, they're afraid that the media may come after them. Well, you know what, friends? As long as we run and hide, as long as we don't stand up, as long as we don't stand for our rights as citizens, you know what'll happen? We'll have to run further, and we'll have to hide deeper, because this problem is not going away. Someone asked me, a little girl asked me the other day, said, well, she'd like to have a .22 rifle when she grows up. And I said, well, I don't blame you for wanting one. But the problem is, I don't know if we'll have guns left in our society, because this is a battle that's going on right now. She said, well, they can't take away our guns, they being the government. I said, well, they're trying. They're trying awfully hard. Just like what's happening in the United Nations right now. You know, the general population is vastly against this climate change protocol treaty that Bill Clinton has already said that he would sign. And that's this treaty that is going on, the discussion is going on right now in Japan about, essentially it boils down to this, is how the United States is going to be punished for using more energy. Well, guess what, friends? You know, the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere has made plants grow better. It's added to the world food supply. There is no evidence at all, according to most scientists, there's no evidence at all of global warming. Yet the United Nations is going to try and force, and our people going right along. Now, you've seen a little bit of backtracking this past week on the part of some of the officials, because they're beginning to feel the heat from you and I. And so many, even some of the labor unions are in on this deal, friends, because they recognize if we cut energy use back to 15% below 1990 levels, think what that's going to do to our economy. Think what it's going to do to jobs. Why should we be punished here in this country because we do more? Because we're more adventurous, because our system allows us to achieve more. Why should we be punished for that? I don't think we should. And I don't think you think so either. So yet, again, this world government that we've been talking about for some time is trying to impose upon us. Realize what this climate change protocol is going to do to you and I. It's going to increase our gasoline bill per gallon about 60 cents a gallon. It's going to increase our home heating costs 40, 45%, maybe 50%. It's going to increase our electricity bill 20 or more percent. For what? For what? And in the same vein, some of the real polluters, polluting economies in our globe here, in our world, such as Mexico, such as Red China, that's communist China. For those of you who are just hearing China, it's communist China. India, another third world country. Some other third world countries won't even be affected by this climate change protocol bill. Now is the time to talk to your congressman. A lot of them are at home now. They're back in the district. They can be found. You can call their office. You can write to them. Now's the time to do it, friends, because what we're looking at, you know, if it weren't so, if the effects weren't so damaging or so far-reaching, what we have in office now in Washington would be downright funny. But you know, it's not funny when you have people, literally, I think it goes a long way toward showing just how strong our ethic of our country, just how strong our country is, because we're still running in spite of all these things that are out of whack there in Washington. So, incidentally, we've been talking about for a couple of weeks, the radio, what they call hate radio, got a lot of lambasting from the White House and from major press about this Arlington Cemetery deal. Well, guess what? Just so happens that they found somebody that the White House had given misinformation on who they are, that's buried in Arlington, that did not qualify to be there. Guess who did it? He gave $10 million to the Democratic National Fund there, the Democratic Party, over a number of years, gave $200,000 to Bill Clinton's re-election campaign effort. And so, yeah, it seems like the Washington Times, their Insight magazine, was right again. And by the way, brings up something that's really important, friends. You know, we are struggling so hard to stay on the air here, but speaking of what they term hate radio, well, we have a radio show, too, on the American Freedom Network. And those of you who missed it this past Sunday, a week ago, and were wondering what happened, well, the American Freedom Network had a terrible fire in their studio out there in Johnstown, Colorado. And, you know, certainly we need every nickel we can to help us stay on the air. But you know what? These are some of the finest people that we've ever met. And if you'd like to help the American Freedom Network rebuild, they are rebuilding as we speak. I don't know when we'll be back on, but hopefully in the immediate future. But their mailing address is the American Freedom Network, Post Office Box 430 in Johnstown, Colorado, 80534. So if you'd like to contribute to help them get back up and get reestablished, they are a worthy cause. Because we have a radio show on there. The article in the newspaper said they were a right-wing extremist radio station, radio network, right-wing extremist. anti-government. Well, we got a show on there. I guess they're talking about us too, huh, friends? Talking about us being a right-wing extremist outfit. Well, you know, I really don't think that's true at all. All we're doing is we're telling the truth. That's all we're doing. If some folks want to call that right-wing extremist, I guess they can call it whatever they want to. But we tell the truth. That's our business, is telling the truth, whether it be about these guns or about what's going on in Washington. So, incidentally, the American Freedom Network still has the pyruvate plus MSM. They still have the colloidal minerals on sale. It's an excellent buy, and you can use that same address if you'd like to have some of those. The colloidal minerals are $19.95 a bottle. The pyruvate plus MSM is $99 for a 3-month supply. It's less expensive than the earlier pyruvate we had, and trust me on this one, you can feel the difference. So anyway, we have a great show for you today. A lot of things are going on, friends. Let me update you a little bit without taking too terrible much time at the beginning of our program. But, you know, we've been talking for the past month or so. In fact, we've been talking about a network for certainly about a year now, or a little longer. But we've been talking with some folks that have some real good ideas, that supposedly have some great connections. But the problem is that we run into over and over and over. We talk to people, and we're willing to listen because here we are, 7 years on the air with this program, most of the time not knowing how we're going to do next week's show. But here we are. And we figure, heck, if we can do it, well, some other people can too. And our problem that we as a small company, people that are not in the good old boy network face, is a lot of folks talk a real good game, and then when it comes time to let's do it, they're not there. So what we're going to do, we're going to continue to pursue. We think it is absolutely essential to pursue a network of entertaining but educational, decent, patriotic. So you have to be careful when you say the word patriot now, because that's not a politically correct word, but patriotic programming. We think it is very important. So we're going to keep trying, friends, as long as we possibly can. So if you can help us, it is very, very difficult. If you can help us stay on the air, please, please send whatever you can to the Shooting Show, 327 Irvin Rowland Road in Duberly, Louisiana. That zip code is 71024. If you'd like to advertise on our program, you can by calling us, area 318-377-5189. Sincerely, friends, we're trying, and we're on here today in a large part due to your contributions. And you've kept us here, and we've got a long way to go. We've got a lot of people left to educate. And yeah, we have some things that we're going to be pursuing that will increase our reach. Don't know if we're going to get anybody to help us or not. I don't know. But we're not going to quit. We're not going to quit. So please help us if you can. Well, let's start today's program. I had our shotgun on last week, and someone said, well, Johnny said, yeah, shotguns are fine for up close, but you know, they kind of forgot about the loading for the slug. The shotgun is the most complete weapon system, in my opinion anyway, that is out there. And when you go to the so-called rifle slugs, which is a very large single projectile in the shotgun shell, you can reach out a long way, much, much further than up close and personal. We have our targets out here at 100 yards. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, heck, since we're here, we've got another one loaded. Let's go ahead and bang that old disc time two. Yeah, they have quite a bit longer reach than a lot of folks think they do.
Stay tuned for more of The Shootin' Show after these important messages.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station. You know, friends, all of us as shooting enthusiasts should be subscribing to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. 3 big issues monthly with literally thousands and thousands of firearms bargains. Give them a call, 1-800-345-6923, a very inexpensive subscription price. Again, 1-800-345-6923. Subscribe today.
Friends, here it is, great Georgia Arms ammunition. Notice these ballistic tip nozzler bullets in this Georgia Arms ammunition. You see, this is equivalent to a box of 20 for only $7.95. Now, friends, that is a terrific price for essentially custom-loaded ammunition. Of course, for the plain full metal jacket, it is much less expensive. Here's another tremendous bag of Georgia Arms ammunition, 7mm Remington Magnum, 20 rounds, only $17.95, loaded with these premium Nosler ballistic tips. I tell you, this is custom ammunition at a discount price. Tell you what, friends, the good people at Georgia Arms do understand what's going on in this country. They understand how important our gun rights are, and they're supporting us on this project. The good news is you can get absolutely superior ammunition at discount prices, whether you have a handgun or a rifle. If you want to take that big hunt, you can afford to practice with your rifle as well as use that same ammunition on the hunt because they are so reasonably priced. These are some of the nicest people we have ever met in this business, bar none, and they're down in beautiful Villa Rica, Georgia. So please, friends, if you would, you can get a free catalog with a free phone call. That's as good as the deal gets. A free catalog, free phone call, 1-800-624-6861. Again, Georgia Arms, 1-800-624-6861. And please tell them you saw it here on our shooting show. Now, friends, this is something that we have done for some time. Certainly, I think we did it last year around Christmas time. We have a potato here, and we have an orange, and we have a CO2-powered pellet guns. And honestly, these pellet guns are great tools for teaching younger people and new shooters the principles of sight alignment, of proper gun handling, of all sorts of neat things about firearms. Plus, a lot of us may live in areas where we can't go out and shoot our firearm. There may be local ordinances against it where we live, but you can install a bullet trap in your basement or certainly maybe in your backyard. You're able to go out and you can still keep your marksmanship ability. It can stay sharp by using a pellet gun. This is a Crossman, and this is very much designed along the lines of the Ruger 1022, a very popular, obviously very popular 22 semi-automatic rifle. In fact, this one is called, who knows what. There's probably a title on it, I just don't know what it is today. Let's see, what the heck is it? This is a Model 1077. Well, it makes sense to me. It has a rotary little magazine there, a cylinder. Actually, it is sort of a revolver in the shape of a rifle, actually. But these are very neat little guns. And we encourage you, certainly, to own air-type guns, or in this case, CO2 guns. But I think a lot of us maybe don't really appreciate the capabilities these little guns have. You can actually hunt squirrels at close range with these. I mean, they're that powerful. Certainly some of them are. But on our young people, you know, our situation with firearms hinges a lot in certain areas on our safety precautions. And the anti-gun people try and use any incident, anything at all they possibly can to say, well, yeah, see there, people can't be trusted to own guns. People can't be trusted to have them. And our children and we as adults need to know just how potent these little air rifles are. Let's take a look at our potato here and see what happens. We're going to shoot it with this 17 caliber pellet. Now you see here, friends, you got a pretty nice sized hole in and out. In fact, you can see all the way through it pretty easy on this potato. It didn't slow that little pellet down very much. Now think about if that was a child's hand, or even worse, if that was a child's eye. Suppose a pellet someone got shot in the eye and it lodged back there in the brain. It could be really a devastating injury. So these things need to be thought about. These are not toys. Let's try our orange here and see what happens. Well, guess what? It went right through that orange, and this is not a this is not an overwrite situation here. It went in one side and out the other. So we're talking about more power, I think, certainly more penetration than a lot of folks realize. And what about the lowly 22? Well, let's take our old one shooter here that dates from the 1920s, and let's go ahead and we'll line our potato up with our orange there. Heck, let's just shoot both of them and see what happens with the 22 long rifle cartridge with a hollow point. Well, like I said, a lot of folks really don't understand just how potent these things are. So if you do get a gun, a 22 or a pellet gun, whatever, for a Christmas gift, let's be sure that we have proper adult supervision and we handle these things responsibly, like they should be. I mean, it's a simple thing. I mean, just like it should be. If you're new to owning guns, read your instruction manual. And you know what? If you buy a gun that does not have an instruction manual, all you have to do is write to the manufacturer, and they'll send you a manual, most of the time at no charge at all. But, you know, friends, if we're going to have a fighting chance to keep guns among the civilian population, we have got to be as responsible and as safe as we possibly can be. Guns are a tremendous amount of fun, but as we've said often before, right now we are losing our rights to own guns, and if we don't stand up now, if we don't do everything we possibly can, well, we're not going to have them in the not too distant future. You know, friends, we had this Kimber on last week's program, the Kimber, and this is the classic custom, which is really the base model Kimber as I understand it. And as we said last week, of course, we rattle the gun and it doesn't rattle. We shook the gun, it doesn't rattle. It is one of the nicest stock guns I've ever come across. It's probably the best shooting .45 ACP gun that I've ever seen out of the box. And these folks are up there in Yonkers, New York. I am most impressed with their gun. I also understand that their service department is just excellent. If you have a problem, and this is not a paid commercial, they've never spent 10 cents with us. Wish they would. We would certainly, I believe we could sell these Kimber guns on the show because they're so such nice pieces. And you know me, friends, I don't pull any punches. You know, I'm not going to tell you it's good if I don't believe it to be so. And this absolutely, to tell you the truth, there's not a doggone thing I could think of that I'd change on it. I think the person that this gun belongs to, I think he wants to put night sights on it, but I don't think that's going to be a major issue at all. That would be about the only thing possible. Put a little fluid film on it, keep it from rusting, which that'll certainly do it. If you've got a blue gun, we'll talk about fluid film in just a moment. But these are absolutely terrific guns. And as we said on last week's program, we got cut short on time. I want to come back and show you the groups that this Kimber shot. Now then, with the factory 230 grain jacketed hollow points, from my hands anyway, off a bench rest, is where we left off last week. 5 shots at 25 yards, 1.9 inches. That is terrific performance, absolutely. And then I had a couple of my hand loads, and with a 185 grain nostril bullet actually in front of a maximum charge of accurate number 5, and this particular gun didn't really like that combination that well. It shot in the 4.5 inch group, which is about as good. as my stock, my Springfield here will do on a good day. Actually, it has gotten down around 3 inches, time or two, but that's the best it'll absolutely do. Now then, let's look with only one change from this 185 grain Nosler in front of a maximum charge of accurate number 7. Same company, just different powder number, different powder type. It went into 1.36 inches, 5 shots at 25 yards. Now, friends, those of you who know anything about shooting 1911 or any semi-automatic for that matter, that is fantastic accuracy. Handheld from a bench, shooting over sandbags there at 25 yards, 1.36 inches, and it'll repeat that group over and over and over. So it just didn't like, and which goes back to hand loading. Many times you have to shoot several different loads through your gun to see what it will prefer, because each one of these have their own slightly different manufacturing tolerances, and these guns are very close. But I just thought that was remarkable, using the same cases, same bullets, same primers, same procedures, except different powder, even running about the same velocity, but the gunpowder had such a remarkable effect on accuracy. Just the not even switching brands, but switching the number. Accurate number 5, accurate number 7. And honestly, I think we mentioned the Kimber certainly gets, it not only gets a passing grade from us, heck, it gets an excellent grade, because there's not a doggone thing. You've got a bevel magazine well here for easy insertion of the magazine. You've got the good grip safety. It's got a pretty good trigger, a very little over travel, and honestly, on a carry gun. Now, this friend of mine that owns this gun is going to carry it, and I don't like super light triggers on anything I'm going to carry, especially a single action gun like this 1911. I like a 5-pound or so trigger because I think they're simply safer. You know, if you did have to pull it, and we know this gun is empty, we know it's unloaded. If you did have to use the gun in self-defense, and whoever a perpetrator there, or whoever is trying to rob you or whatever, come in your home, whichever, and they surrender, you don't want the proverbial hair trigger on the gun. If you're going to hold him, and I know it's one thing to say to keep your finger off the trigger, but a lot of us, including a lot of police officers, when they're holding someone at gunpoint, they got their finger on the trigger. And I just don't like, because you're going to be nervous anyway. It doesn't take that much to set these things off. And I like, this gun has about a 5-pound trigger on it, and it's very positive. And I like that. I don't want it to be any lighter than that on a carry gun, one that you might actually have to use in defense of your life. So point there, these folks really got it right. If this is any indication of how they make handguns, in fact, we need to examine some of their rifles. They have some other stuff that they manufacture, including they have some different models of the handgun of the 1911, and I'm anxious to get my hands on a couple of them and try it. Like I said, there's not a doggone thing I can think of that I'd do to this gun. It's right out of the box, and which can't be said for most of them. Let me tell you what can't be said for for most of the manufacturer's guns. So anyway, the Kimber Classic Custom gets an excellent rating for us. I think it's a heck of a bargain for what you get.
Stay tuned for more of the Shootin' Show after these important messages.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station. Now, friends, here it is. This is the great 1919 Browning converted to semi-automatic from the good people at NWI. This is your chance to own a real piece of history. They're very collectible. They're also a lot of fun to own and shoot, and very reasonably priced, certainly for what you get. The 1919 Browning is from NWI. That phone number, area 503-429-5001. They also have the ammunition special still going on. 30-06 ammunition, only 18 cents a round, surplus in the belt. So give them a call today, NWI, for the great 1919 Browning conversion. Also remember, they have the A6 conversion with the shoulder stock and the bipod. But these are tremendous pieces of history, also great shooters. So give them a call today, the 1919 Browning from NWI, area 503-429-5001.
And we want to remind you, friends, now you can get a version of this same gun, except about twice as big, in .50 Browning caliber. And they have a limited number of these that will be available, so you might want to look for it on the cover of this month's Guns and Ammo magazine. They do a full test in the magazine on this great gun from NWI. Remember, give them a call today. Trust me, either one of these guns will not be available forever. You can call them, area 503-429-5001, and please, please tell them that you saw it here on our shooting show. Now, friends, we're going back in memory lane here, looking through our shooting show archives. You know, we have so much neat stuff we've covered in past years. Here was one, a tape piece on artistry and arms, the guns of Smith & Wesson, a production by Cass Paley, and we had an excerpt that we ran on the shooting show. So I think a lot of you would enjoy seeing that again today, or at least part of it.
Horace Smith and Daniel B. Wesson, two names forever synonymous with excellence and artistry in firearms development and manufacturing. Their contribution to American history is immeasurable. Over 100 years after this historic pairing, the Connecticut Valley Historical Museum and the Smith & Wesson Company assembled a unique firearms exhibition to celebrate their illustrious history. The Artistry in Arms exhibit will tour a multitude of museums across the United States, concluding in Raleigh, North Carolina in 1994. The first stop for the exhibit after its formal opening in Springfield, Massachusetts in July 1991 is the Gene Autry Western Heritage Museum in Los Angeles, California. Now come back in time with us and meet Horace Smith and Daniel Wesson as they begin their careers and the formation of Smith & Wesson. Horace Smith, born in 1808, was 17 years older than Daniel B. Wesson, born in 1825. Both men had grown up in the firearms business, Horace apprenticing at the U.S. Armory in Springfield, Massachusetts, and Daniel in his brother Edwin's rifle shop. While working with his brother, D.B. Wesson had a keen interest in crafting fine target pistols. Horace Smith, after leaving the Armory, established his own shop in Norwich, Connecticut, where he manufactured many types of arms. One of the most unique was a revolving pistol that had been invented by Orville Percival and Asa Smith in 1850. The two cylindrical drums located under the barrel contained the powder, balls, and primers. Each time the arm was fired, these drums were rotated 180 degrees for recharging the firearm. By 1850, both Horace Smith and D.B. Wesson were operating as independent arms manufacturers, doing contract work for various other individuals. It was in this capacity that Smith & Wesson had the opportunity to work together for the first time at the Robbins and Lawrence Armory in Windsor, Vermont. Their first achievement as a team was an improvement on a repeating firearm. This pistol was a lever-action style handgun that featured a tubular magazine, allowing the arm to be rapidly fired as fast as the lever could be operated. The potential of this arm, which fired a full self-contained cartridge, encouraged the two men to form a partnership. And so in 1852, the Smith & Wesson Company was formed in Norwich, Connecticut. In August of 1854, the partners patented a new metallic cartridge, which is today recognized as the 22 rim-fire cartridge. However, they could not make this new cartridge function in their lever-action pistols. The use of the new cartridge was limited to a single-shot pistol that D.B. Wesson had developed. By 1855, Smith & Wesson had serious financial problems and were forced to sell the company and lever-action patents to Oliver Winchester. In 1856, D.B. Wesson developed a small revolver to fire the rimfire cartridges patented in 1854. He brought this newly designed revolver to Springfield to show his old partner, and they agreed to reestablish their partnership to produce the new cartridge revolver. On November 17, 1856, a second partnership of Smith & Wesson was formed. This partnership was the Smith & Wesson Revolver Company of Springfield, Massachusetts. When the partners tried to patent the new revolver, they were informed that a Mr. Rowland White held a patent of April 3, 1855, which included the most important feature of the new revolver. This feature was a cylinder where the charge holes had been bored completely through. This was necessary for loading the cartridges into the rear of the cylinder. Although Rowland White's design was for a front-loading percussion revolver, its design required that the cylinder be bored completely through. The two partners successfully negotiated the right to this patent and soon began production of their own revolver called the Model 1. The firm's early revolvers are of the tip-up design. In this design, the barrel is tipped upward over the top strap so that the cylinder can be removed for loading or ejecting the spent cartridges. By the 1860s, the company was producing both 22 and 32 caliber rimfire revolvers. The larger of these, called the Model 2, was a popular sidearm for officers in the Civil War. A smaller 5-shot, called the Model 1.5, was developed in 1865 as a pocket 32 caliber revolver, helping to round out the Smith & Wesson line of handguns. As we move on to Case 4, we have the opportunity to study Smith & Wesson's efforts to produce a large military 44 caliber revolver. One of the early attempts in this direction was the large solid frame 44 rimfire model of 1867. This revolver was loaded through a loading gate located in the right side recoil shield. To extract the cartridge, the rod under the barrel was removed and used to drive the empties out of the cylinder. The chain was connected to the extractor rod to prevent its loss. The model of 1867 was not considered practical and never placed in production. This was followed by a 41 caliber rimfire produced on the design of its early tip-ups. Since the revolver was only a 4-shot, it was not accepted as a practical military arm, and less than 100 units were produced. In the summer of 1870, Smith & Wesson introduced its Model 3 44 caliber top break revolver. The Model 3 was the first practical large frame cartridge revolver to be commercially manufactured. The U.S. Cavalry ordered 1,000 of these models, but the largest order Smith & Wesson received came from the Tsar of Russia. Between 1871 and 1878, the Russian government contracted for over 138,000 of the Smith & Wesson Model 3s. The company produced 3 different Russian models. The arms going to Russia were stamped with the Smith & Wesson company name in the Cyrillic Russian language. With the orders coming from the Russian government and the popularity of the new Smith & Wesson top break design, Smith & Wesson established itself as a manufacturer of military arms. The new top break system was a vast improvement over the tip-up design. In this system, the cylinder and barrel are tipped downward, activating a star-shaped extractor that automatically ejects the spent cartridges and exposes the cylinder for rapid reloading. The Smith & Wesson Model 3 was further improved upon by a major in the U.S. Cavalry, George W. Schofield. Major Schofield's improvement was to move the locking latch from the rear of the barrel to the frame. This allowed the cavalry officer to open the revolver with his thumb, making it possible to unload and reload the arm while at full gallop and in the heat of battle. With the U.S. Army's acceptance of the 45 caliber Model 3 Schofield, the demand for all of Smith & Wesson's large caliber revolvers grew. The factory could not supply enough of its revolvers to meet the demand of America's frontier. In Case 6, we see the evolutionary development of Smith & Wesson's small frame top breaks and the development of their first self-cocking or double actions, as we call them today. The first small top break revolver was the model of 1871, a 32 rimfire built as a scaled-down copy of the larger Model 3. This revolver was too complicated to manufacture. By 1876, Smith & Wesson had modified the design and introduced a 38 single action, a Spurch rigger revolver nicknamed Baby Russian. As important as the revolver was, the new 38 Smith & Wesson cartridge, introduced to be fired in it, became one of the most accepted cartridges in the world and had a longevity far beyond the original model for which it was designed. The development of Smith & Wesson's double-action revolvers began in 1872 with an inquiry from the Russian government for a .44 self-cocking revolver. Smith & Wesson built the model of 1872 and submitted it to the Russians. It was never placed in production. Smith & Wesson's line of double-action revolvers were finally introduced in 1880. One of the most interesting of this line is the rare .44 double-action, which was lightened by milling away all excess metal. This model became known as the Wesson favorite, for it had been designed by D.B. Wesson, who was now sole owner of the firm, having purchased Horace Smith's share of the company in 1874. In the late 1880s, Smith & Wesson began the development of the adjustable-sighted target revolvers and pistols. The first was the new Model 3 Target, which was used by such greats as Annie Oakley and Ira Payne. This was followed in 1893 by a line of single-shot target pistols to compete with the popular Stevens single-shot pistol. For the law enforcement community, Smith & Wesson introduced the .38 New Departure. This hammerless double-action revolver was the beginning of a long line of Smith & Wesson hammerless models, including the current Model 640. One of the most unique target revolvers displayed is the tiny 6-inch barrel 22 hand ejector. This revolver was Smith & Wesson's original Lady Smith and was very popular between 1902 and 1920 with women target shooters. In Case 7, the revolvers look like the modern guns of today. These are the handguns which led the way to the contemporary design of Smith & Wesson revolvers. The .32 hand ejector, Smith & Wesson's first side-swing revolver. The legendary .38 military and police revolver, introduced in 1899 and still in production today, with more than 5 million of these famous K-frames being produced. With the .38 M&P revolver, or Model 10 as it is now called, Smith & Wesson introduced a new cartridge, the .38 Special, a cartridge that has been the workhorse for lawmen and sportsmen since its introduction in 1899. In 1908, the famous .44 hand ejector with its triple locking system set the design look for all future N-frame models featuring the fully shrouded extractor housing. Next in importance to the .38 military and police model was Smith & Wesson's development of the .357 Magnum cartridge and revolver from which it was fired. There is no disputing that this revolver, which ushered in the era of Magnum handgunning, was the finest revolver ever built by Smith & Wesson. With the .357 Magnum and the onset of World War II, the evolutionary story of this display ends. But our exhibit continues to tell another story, the story of Smith & Wesson engraving and the fine art of firearms.
Stay tuned for more of the Shootin' Show after these important messages.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
Now, friends, this is important. You know, we're always trying to show you good products, and we've been talking about this fluid film, for a while now, and a number of you have ordered it. And of course, we try and do anything we can here to help. We get a little bit off this, thanks to our good friend Bill Lewis, who's helping us on this project. And Bill, we want you to know we really do appreciate your efforts here. He's a fine fellow down there in Georgia. He introduced me to fluid film, and Bill called me up and said, well, Johnny's got the greatest lubricants, greatest thing. I said, well, yeah, here in the shop we've only got, I'm probably looking at cans of 15 or 20 lubricants, or who knows what, that people have sent us to try at different times, and a lot of them are pretty good. And finally he kept bugging me to try it, and you know, honestly, friends, I couldn't believe it. And I'm having the same difficulty. I've sent these cans or small cans to a number of different folks around the country, some of our good friends, and once I finally get them to try it, they say, yeah, well, it's just another lubricant. Trust me, friends, it is not another lubricant. It is a super lubricant. This stuff's in a class by itself. And I was so amazed when I finally did get around to trying it. I said, hey, well, sell this stuff. I mean, as good as this is, trust me, friends, it is in a class by itself. If you recall now, going back in time, we took my shooting show carry model here, my old 1911, which is missing quite a bit of the bluing at times. Of course, I touch it up, but it's still got quite a few places on there that the bluing is missing, especially on the inside of the gun. And remember, I treated it with fluid film, and then I put it in a bucket of water. And we took the gun out, and I shot it, shot just fine, and I left it in my shop overnight. And down here in Louisiana, it's real humid. A lot of you know that. And I took the gun down to the tiniest pieces, to the smallest. I mean, took it completely down. Took all the firing pin, the extractor, the hammer and sear, everything out of it. Magazine release, the trigger bar, everything. And you know what? After 24 hours of water sitting in this inside the gun there, it had not a speck of rust. Now, I was impressed. Think about all those duck hunters out there that sometimes use their shotgun stock as a paddle in their boats, which is ignorant. That's terrible, friends. I guess if you dropped your paddle overboard or something, but I'd hate to use a shotgun for a paddle on a boat, but some of them have done that. And honestly, the fluid film, if you're out hunting in the rain with your gun and you're in the you get your gun wet, well, you don't have to worry about it right then, because it's not going to rust then. You have time to go back and get back in a comfortable surrounding there and clean your gun and do it right. Yeah, you can get it off. It's not, it can be gotten off with good cleaners and all, but the thing is, it won't just wash away. It's going to stay longer than anything we've ever seen. Remember, on another program, we took my old black powder gun here, and we treated it with fluid film and shot the gun, and then swabbed the barrel really well with fluid film patches. We got it all over the gun, and I took it to my shop, left it again 24 hours, and came back to it the next day and finished or cleaned the gun. And guess what? Again, no rust anywhere. And that is remarkable. Those of you that shoot black powder know how corrosive this stuff, black powder, is, and the fluid film absolutely did not let this gun rust at all. Remember the old holster I had that, heck, that thing's 20-something years old. And I found it was buried in some boxes, and the fluid film just really made it, it was so terribly molded, made it into a real nice piece of equipment again. And I'll tell you another thing, my old Super Blackhawk here, you know, Ruger uses real good steel in their guns, high carbon steel, but this gun has seen a lot of carry and a lot of wear over the years as far as on the finish, and I've got to be real careful with it, because if I leave it again in our humidity here in Louisiana, it will rust really easily. Well, guess what? Thanks to good old fluid film here, it doesn't rust anymore. I don't have to worry if I don't pick it up this week or next. I don't have to worry, because if it has fluid film on there, it's going to still be on there when I go back and use the gun. So that is remarkable. Anyone who stores guns for any period of time, and of course the thing is, you can also you use it on the doors on your car, your hinges. This stuff is so good, it will work at temperatures at 50 below zero. It'll work at literally hundreds of degrees. NASA uses this on the vertical stabilizer on the space shuttle there, also on the flaps on the space shuttle. Now think about it, friends. Give me more extremes of temperature than the space shuttle might have. So certainly if you're going to the Arctic or something, you can count on this stuff. Or if you're in the worst possible condition, it's still going to work. You can use it on electronics. I use it on all our camera connections and stuff. Like I said, when there's a good chance when the government finds out that we as consumers can buy this stuff, they may try and stop it, because it is so good. They may literally, a little humor there, but who the heck knows, it is so good. It's been around 50-something years, but it's new to us as far as shooting. Now, some of our machine gun friends have used this for years and have been tickled to death with it, but they didn't tell anybody. So Thankfully, it is now available to us.
To use on our guns, leather, anything else we care about preserving, and it's only $19.95 for these 2 large cans. Send a check or money order to the Shooting Show, 327 Irvin Rowland Road in Dubberly, Louisiana. That zip code is 71024. Again, only $19.95 for these 2 large cans. Trust me on this one, friends. You won't be disappointed.
Well, friends, we hope you're enjoying our program today. I had hoped to have the judge on today's program because we've had a number, since he hasn't been on recent shows, a lot of people have asked, well, how's he doing? And this morning he had to go to a stress test at the hospital, and honestly, when I've talked to him this week, he's been doing okay. He's doing much better. You know, he's had some real serious health problems, but thankfully he is doing much, much better, and we hope to get him on again soon. I'd hope to have him on today. Well, friends, you know, we were talking in the studio a few minutes ago about blaming. Everyone in our society today wants to blame someone else for whatever happens to them, for whatever is happening to them or has happened. Well, you know, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should look for the solution to the problem instead of just casting about on blame. This basketball player that got fired the other day from some $20 or $30 million contract, well, he shouldn't have jumped on his coach and tried to choke him. I mean, you know, when I was playing basketball back in high school, if we had jumped on the coach and tried to choke him, I mean, we would not only would have been let go from the team, we'd have been put out of the county or parish here in Louisiana. So, you know, we always want to establish blame. Well, what we need to do is become better organized in our gun owner community, because this is the only way we're going to fix the problem. We know what to do. We know that we have to reach more Americans all over this country. We have to. We have to. Not only to retain our gun rights, but to retain our freedom, period. This climate change protocol deal that's going on right now is another example of a massive worldwide redistribution of wealth. Why should we as Americans be punished because we have gone further, done more, thought up more, achieved more? Why should we be punished? I don't think we should. And you know what? In order to ensure a free society, why shouldn't we be free from fear in our homes? Why not? Why shouldn't we be? And we can be if we're properly armed. It's supplied there in the Constitution. Our rights, in fact, are guaranteed by the Constitution, not provided by the Constitution, but the guarantee is provided that we as free Americans can continue to be armed. And we're losing this battle right now. As we have often said, friends, if you can help us, whether we have to go this thing alone and establish our network, a gun-friendly network, a little bit of time, whatever it takes, we're going to continue working. We're going to continue trying. We have to. There is no alternative. We have to. If you can help us, please send whatever you can to the Shooting Show, 327 Irvin Rowland Road in Dubberly, Louisiana. That zip code is 71024. Our phone number, area 318-377-5189. Friends, this is important. If you can join our Shooting Show support group or buy advertising time, we certainly need your help. We want to recognize our support group, James Calhoun Bullets. He makes custom grade 17 and 22 centerfire bullets, not loaded ammunition, but bullets. And you can find out about his product lineup by calling area 406-395-4079. Also, our friend Dennis Crocker in South Carolina, firearms instructor, and he is authorized to go throughout South Carolina. His number is area 864-587-8722. Again, 864-587-8722. Our good friends Dennis and Jeannie Ritchie, custom leather work in Saddlery in Denham Springs, Louisiana. They do all kinds of leather work, holster repair, tack repair, whatever you need. Please give them a call, area 504-667-9225. Again, 504-667-9225. Our good friends at Clark Custom Guns, whether you want to customize your 1911 or you want one of their super accurate Ruger 1022s, they have all kinds of products and modifications they can make on your guns. Their number is area 318-949-9884. Again, 318-949-9884. If you want Spyderco or Cold Steel knives at a discount, you can call our friends at Advantage Outlet.
And you can get them at 1-800-561-1719. Again, 1-800-561-1719.
And we have a new member in our support group, Hollis C. Kinchin Company. They deal in dirt, sand, gravel, dozer work, dragline, and tractor work. They're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and their number is area 504-3554-051. Again, area 504-3554-051. I tell you what, friends, our support group is very important to us because it certainly helps keep us on the air. This is something that we developed that's a less expensive sponsorship, but it helps us. Everything does help to keep us on the air because, believe me, we're counting not just nickels and dimes, we're counting pennies here on this project. Friends, what we have to do is we've got to reach more Americans. We have several ways that we're looking at. I tell you what, this battle is not going to go away, and we're not either. I know you're not. We're not going to go away. Whether we remain on the air or not, we're going to continue to try. If we go off the air, we're going to try to get back on it. So anyway, thank you so much for watching our program today. Please remember our friends out at the American Freedom Network. We wish them the very best. Hopefully our radio show will be back up shortly. They will be back on the air, I think, sometime this week or next. We're very, very hopeful about that. So we look forward to seeing you on the next program. Now see, I have just racked the bolt on this gun and loaded it with a real shell.